welcome to the Authorpreneurial Summit. I'm Janine Bolin, and with us today on Authorpreneurs HQ, which is the group that is sponsoring us, is Michael Whitehouse. Now, Michael Whitehouse, he's kind of a fun friend of mine. He and I collaborate in bizarre and exciting ways. And what do I mean by that? He goes, "You're running a summit. Well, how can I support you?" I'm like, "Well, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about that." And he's like, "Let's do a summit with the summit." And so I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." And so he ran a summit yesterday and let me be the keynote speaker. And I'm like, "Come to my summit. Let me have you as a speaker." And so he's going to talk to us about networking because he's the guy who knows a guy. And what is important about this is I was so interested in Michael's story. He became part of the 99 Authors Project because he purposefully published his book with no intention of selling it. He started the whole process, the guy who knows a guy, of having a book as a business card on steroids. That was the first time I started using that, was after I had met Michael. I was like, he has a business card that's on steroids because it's bigger, it's thicker, blah, blah, blah. They're just goofing off, having fun. So Michael has gone from being a super connector twice, where he started from the ground up, where he moved to Groton, Connecticut. He didn't know anybody at all. And within a year, people were going to him to find out who he knew because he seemed to know everybody. And then it happened again with COVID, where he had to go online, and he was an in-person guy. And so he had to start from the ground up again. And guess what? Everybody I talked to, I'm like, "Hey, have you met Michael Whitehouse?" And it's pretty much like, "Yeah, I think I recognize the name." Thank you, Black Market. Anyway, okay, my joke. So, Michael, it's lovely to have you with us today. Talk to us about how you go about networking the right way. And networking the right way means you're not a burden to the person who's listening to you. And you say just enough that you then engage in conversation, and it's not pitches. So I introduced to you Michael Whitehouse. Thank you for being with us today.
Sure. Yeah, so before we get into marketing and networking the right way, I want to touch a little bit on why a lot of people don't like networking and tend to network the wrong way.
Thank you.
That is because, and a lot of people, they take it on themselves like, "Oh, I'm not a good networker. I'm shy. I'm an introvert. I never learned how. I don't know the right people," whatever. And then I realized one day that this is not an accident that people don't know how to network. There's people out there who want you to not know how to network, or want you to think networking doesn't work because there's a benefit to it. And I came up with this concept of the corruptors of networking. And then, this being the future, I fed it into Dolly and asked it to create an image of it. So here we have the corruptors of networking. There's 5 of them. I'm not sure which ones are which, but I'm going to put them away because they're scary. But we got the corruptors networking. There's 5 of them. There's the sales manager, the marketer, the automator, the fool, and the taker. So the sales manager is the first corruptor I came across, and many of you have probably had this experience, that you try to network when you're working for someone else, and they're focused on this quarter, this month, how many leads do you have, how many prospects do you have. And so you go to a networking event, you're trying to build relationships, and they're like, "Relationships? What is this, dating? Give me some prospects, slam some deals, make some money." Because they don't understand anything bigger than they don't understand that what happened last month is what led to the sales this month, which is weird because they must have been a good salesperson to become a sales manager. But I guess that's erased from their mind when they get promoted. So that's the first corruptor, is the ones who focus you on right now. The next one is the marketer. You can't sell networking. You can sell Facebook ads, you can sell web development, you can sell all kinds of marketing tools, but you can't sell networking. You can sell teaching someone how to network, but it's not a service. You can't put money into it. So there's all these marketers who will say, "Oh, networking doesn't work. You need Facebook ads." "Oh, what do you sell?" "Facebook ads." What a coincidence. So they want to downplay whatever you have for what they're selling. The next one is the automator. This is a new corruptor. There used to be 4. Now, or in the future, there's a 5th one. The automator has a better technology for whatever you're doing. And so, for example, I ran across someone who has this amazing new technology that will make your networking events more effective that you attend by taking those useless chats that you have saved from the networking events and get useful prospects out of them. wait a minute, prospects, where'd the prospects come from? There's no prospects in a networking meeting. There's potential networking partners. This technology will take the chat, scrape all the data out, which scrape is just as gross a word as it sounds, and feed it into your CRM to do with as you see fit. Now, you could use that ethically, but most people obviously won't. So the automators have a better, faster way to do it and to make it more inhuman. Then, of course, we have the fool. That's the one who doesn't know how to network. And if you do how to network and they don't, that makes you smarter than them. So they need to convince you it doesn't work. It's not that they're not good at networking. It's that it doesn't work at all. Nobody could possibly do it. They're not a fool. Nobody could use it. It doesn't work. And then the last one is the taker. The taker is effective at networking. They achieve the result they set out to achieve. They go to networking spaces and they make sales. And they do it by whatever means. They say, yeah, let's get on a one-to-one. And then they pitch people and they sell them because they're good at it. But that would be unethical unless that's how networking works. So they will try to convince you that's how networking works so that it's ethical, right? That's what I do. It must be right. I'm a good person. I'm a family man. I've got children. I go to church. I must be a good person. So going to networking event, that's what it's all about. It's about business. Always be selling because, selling is serving or something, I guess. So these are the 5 different types of people who teach you the wrong way to network and will thus make you question yourself when you're saying, well, should I be talking about, our kids, or should I be focusing on going to the deal? Because that guy says he makes a lot of money going straight for the deal and he says it's okay. I don't know. So now let's talk about the right way to do it, now that we know who's telling you the wrong way. So I single-handedly am fighting against the forces of evil. I mean, I'm not single-handedly doing it. There's some other great people like Bob Berg, whose book I keep right over here, The Go-Giver, and some other good people out there as well. There's a small and growing movement of the good guys. But the right way to do it is to approach every situation. The way I say it is approach every situation with the intention to solve a problem of the person you're talking to. Different people say this different ways, but it's basically providing value to every person you meet, making their life better in every way you can. And the way you solve this problem, you have 3 tools in your arsenal to solve a problem that you come across. Way number 1 is an introduction. Number 2 is advice. And number 3 is an offer. Now, number 3 has a big old asterisk on it because that offer is like the thing you sell. So you can always make an introduction. You can always offer advice, not device, advice. So you can always offer advice, just making sure you're on your toes. Janine, just make sure you're paying attention. And the third one, the thing you sell may be the thing they need. If you are a physical therapist and you're talking to someone and they're mentioning this issue with their back that just won't go away and they've seen 4 chiropractors, not getting any better, well, the purist networking be like, we don't sell in networking. So the purists would say, well, you're not going to make an offer there because that would be selling. But what kind of a jerk are you to let them live on in pain instead of telling them you have a solution, and by the way, it has a cost? So you can make the offer, but only after they've expressed a need that your offer solves. And we can talk later about how to pivot that, because it's about getting consent to sell instead of just going straight into it. But the first 2, introduction and advice, you always have. And advice is not necessarily, you should do this. Advice could be, oh, there's this great YouTube channel you can check out. Or have you read this book? Or have you listened to this podcast? And introductions, I was making introductions 3 weeks after moving to Groton at my second and third and possibly my first networking event. Because when you go to an event, you meet a person and then you meet a second person. Well, when you talk to the second person, how many people in the room do you know? 1. Then you meet the third person, 2. And you meet the fourth person, 3. And once you get up to 3 or 4, there's a surprisingly high probability that the person you're talking to needs to meet one of the previous people that you already talked to. And if you make that introduction, they say, wow, that's so helpful, because what's everyone else trying to do who's talking to them? Sell them something. So everyone else is trying to sell them something. You made them even a mediocre introduction to someone else in the room. Remember, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. Most people at a networking event are afraid to network. They're afraid to walk up to strangers. They're there because they have to be. They're not sure how to do it. They don't know how to make an introduction. And And so if you make an introduction between two, you could introduce two random people in the room and they'd appreciate it because you just did what they should be doing for themselves, walking up to strangers, except you facilitated it for them. So the point is that you're providing value first. And here's the cool trick. Oh yeah, show of hands. Who's uncomfortable introducing themselves, like elevator pitch, not sure what to say when you go to an event and you walk up to someone and introduce yourself? Anyone else have trouble with that? No one? Okay, good. At least someone does. I always do the people with their cameras off have their hands up for that question because
yes,
that's why their cameras off. Here's the best thing. Now I'm going to talk to you. We'll get to a great way you can introduce yourself, but the best way to introduce yourself is not to do it until they ask you to. So you get them talking. Your goal is to find a problem you can solve. So now you go into detective mode. So it doesn't matter what questions you ask. It's always, what are the questions asked? Questions that will lead to a problem you might be able to solve. So some people say you shouldn't ask, what do you do? You should ask, what's your favorite thing about the thing or how long? It doesn't matter. Ask some questions. I like, what do you do? Because if you're at a business networking event, everyone does something and they can answer it anyway. What do you do? They could say I'm the manager of the bank. They could say their job title. What do you do? I bring joy to people's hearts. It's a somewhat very open-ended question and it will lead somewhere, but you're going to ask questions to find out, and whatever you're happy with, tell them about yourself, tell them about your world, whatever you like. And that's going to lead to questions. You're going to keep asking them questions and be curious. You should be genuinely curious. Yeah, I'm going to say generally, you should be genuinely curious about people you meet because that makes life better. So it also makes it more profitable, makes you a better networker, a better interviewer, but it also just makes life better. So be curious about the person in front of you, ask questions. Your job is to find a problem to solve. Now all the pressure's off. You're not going to introduce yourself anymore. You're just going to do this. And at some point, they're going to be so overwhelmed with curiosity. They're like, who is this person who wants nothing more than to learn about me and solve my problems? Who are you? And they will eventually ask you, who are you? What do you do? And then that's when you're going to introduce yourself in the manner which I will share in a moment, at which point they will now ask you more questions. And instead of you throwing a pitch at them, because a pitch has to be for everyone ever, which means it's good for no one. Instead of throwing a pitch at them, they're going to start asking you questions and you're going to answer them. So Janine, should I share the Russo intro?
Would you please, Michael? We are sitting here with bated breath, waiting.
I will do so then. So the Russo intro is a simple 2-line introduction I met from Mitch Russo, that I got from Mitch Russo, thus the Russo intro. So the first sentence begins with, you know how. And the second sentence begins with, what I do is. Now, this is particularly well suited to anyone who sells something or, is a coach, teacher, whatever, but it really works for anyone. So yeah, it works for literally anyone. So I use a few different ones. So the great thing is it's the simplest way to create these is you say, you know how, and in your mind, you have, I solve a problem. And then you finish the sentence with the problem. And then what I do is solution that problem, finish sentence with the solution. Now, it's best if you sit down and work through it and workshop it and figure out the best way to say it and best wording. But if you're on the spot and you just say, you know how, what I do is, you'll come up with something pretty decent. And I know this because I have gone around many Zoom rooms and made people do it, and they come up with it once they get out of their own way. Because you know what problem you solve, and you know what you do. And the goal of it is to get them to ask questions, get them to have questions. So for example, one that I might use is, you know how many people think that networking is difficult and unpleasant and generally unprofitable. What I do is teach a way to network with ease that is fun, builds relationships, and makes more money. So if I'm standing in front of you at an event and I say that and then stop talking, you're going to have some kind of questions. I bet some question came into your head after I said that. Now, if you do a bad introduction, one that rambles on, a question also comes into people's head. And that question is, when will this person stop talking? That is not a good question to be in their head. But you may have had a question like, what is your method? How do you teach it? If you're more in the business, you may be thinking, are you a coach? Do you have a course? How do you sell it? The question could also be, how much do you charge? Do you do one-on-one coaching? When can we start? Can I pay you right now? These are the best questions if you do it really well. But the point is, it gets them to be asking those questions because you stop. Now, this is the place everyone goes wrong. Not everyone. Many people go wrong. Is how a lot of people don't like networking because they find it stressful and unprofitable. Well, what I do is I teach networking with ease, and I make it fun, and I teach great intros, and then I give them a great way to find events. And then the other thing I do is this thing, and I do that, and you don't have any questions anymore because I talked over your spot. I stepped on your line. But if I just stop at, network with ease, make better relationships, and make more money, period, leave open space, I'm obviously done talking. It's your turn, and you probably have a question, so you're going to ask it. So I'm going to answer it. And then you're going to have another question, and I'm going to answer that. And now, instead of giving a pitch, you're being interviewed, and they're expressing their interest. Now, some people will be like, that's nice. And now it's time to go meet someone else because they're not interested in you. So now you're ready to go meet someone else. If you're at a live event, you generally don't want to spend more than 5 minutes with any one person, because the purpose of these events is to identify who you want to follow up with. At live events, you can have deeper conversations. On virtual events, this is crucial. Anytime you're in a breakout session, whatever, you're triaging yes or no, I want to have a follow-up call. Because if you're in a 7-minute, 10-minute, 12-minute, 20-minute breakout session, you do not have enough time and space to have a good conversation. And you're always going to feel like, we kind of had a conversation, but not really. But if you go into it with the mindset of speed dating, of do I want to check yes or check no on this person's card, then you're going in probing for how can I serve them? How can they serve me? Do we have something to pursue? And then you send them your calendar link. And if you're going to be networking online, have a calendar link. So that's how to introduce yourself at the events and how to make that impression. And once you do that, it eliminates the biggest stress that most people have, which is how am I going to introduce myself and what am I going to say? Because all you're going to say, do you want to hear the line that I use to approach strangers at networking events?
Yes, please.
My surefire conversation starting line, my networking pickup line, if you will. It is, now you're going to need to customize this for yourself. It is, hi, I'm Michael. I don't think we've met yet. Now, I recommend where I said Michael, you should put your name, because if you say hi, I'm Michael, that will be weird. But hi, I'm Michael. I don't think we've met yet. Very simple, entirely true, which builds credibility. Because even if I have met them, because it happens all the time that I meet someone, I say, I don't think we've met yet. And they say, no, I think we met at an event 6 months ago. I didn't say we haven't met. I said, I don't think we've met yet. And then when they correct me, I say, oh yeah, no, that's probably right. Right now, remind me who you are. I'm trying to be very polite about it. And I can be like, oh, well, I meet so many people and I am very important. So you're lucky I'm talking to you at all, let alone twice. But if you're polite about it, they'll remind you. But at the same time, if you're not being haughty about it, it could give them the impression of this person must meet a lot of people. I'm not surprised they don't remember me. And then if you do remember them, like, oh, right, yeah, you've got the book on the potatoes. And they're like, yes, yes. Now they feel special because the very busy person who can't remember when they met remembers them. But so you lead with that. I don't think we've met yet. And then questions, find out a problem you can solve, try to solve it for them, and then wait for them to say, so what about you? Well, you know how. And there we go.
Da, 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 da. Thank you so much, Michael. And you also gave us a bonus in here. So talk to us a little bit about this Google Doc that you gave us as a bonus.
Let's see, what's the bonus? Oh, there's that bonus. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that bonus as well. I have other bonuses too, but
yeah, I know you do.
So I came up with this should you invest in this program doc because now probably none of you have had this experience, but every once in a while, I have bought coaching programs and courses that were not worth the investment. In fact, some were a complete waste of money. Has anyone ever had that experience? Okay, it's not just me. Good. And especially in the fancier events that are built to separate you from your money, they use all kinds of strategies to build the buying tension and the energy and the, they take you, actually a lot of what Nikki was talking about how you get into this fight or flight mode and you get into the momentum and you're no longer thinking at a high level and you're just reacting. That's how they want you to be, because they get you into a state of lack and hope. And you say, well, the way through would be to give them money, because I don't know how to do this and I don't have this. And what am I going to do? I guess I'll pay them. That sounds good. And then it's a week later when you're like, wait a minute, that program doesn't solve a problem I have, or this doesn't look like what I wanted, or this doesn't look like what they were selling. So this PDF is a list of questions that you can ask yourself. So when you're in that moment, because if you've ever been to a 3-day sales event or a 3-day enrollment event, which, hint, if you're invited to a free event that's 3 days long, it's probably a 3-day enrollment event, which means sometime around 60% of the way through the second day, they're going to make an offer. At the beginning of the third day, they're going to remind you of the offer. Nothing wrong with this format. It's a perfectly fine format, and often you get tremendous value from those events. And that's the trade-off. They give you tremendous value so you can be there so they can do their thing. You take this document, and when you're in that moment and you're feeling like, well, maybe I should, I don't know, I'm feeling like I might miss out, this might be the thing I need, this is what will bring me through. Go through the questions and answer them. And one, they're pretty good questions. I think I came up with pretty good questions. But simply the process of answering the questions pulls you back into your higher brain, lower brain, higher brain, logical part. Mm-hmm. Pulls you to your human brain and out of your reptilian brain. So going through those questions will help you to do that. And you may get through it and be like, yes, one of the questions, how important is the solution to you? Which I did 1 to 11, because this one goes to 11. But it asks you questions like, what solution do you believe this program will provide? What problem does the solution solve? How important is the solution to you? What makes you think the program will provide this solution to the problem? Who else provides a similar solution? And as you start working through these questions, you get out of the world they have created for you and into reality. And in reality, you may say, no, really, this is a great program. I want to be in it. Or you may say, wait a minute, I know someone who offers this, who I've worked with before, and I know and trust them, and I think they charge less. I don't want this, because it breaks the spell. So that is what I created this for. And I discovered, Janine put FOMO in the chat there. I discovered a fantastic acronym, which is JOMO, which I encourage you to learn. JOMO is joy of missing out. So JOMO, so FOMO is what you have before, you're at the event, they're offering the thing, it's going to change your life. And FOMO, you're like, well, what if I miss out? What if I don't get this? What if I don't change my life? And then once you've made the affirmative decision not to buy it, and you say, no, it's more than I want to spend, I'm not confident they can deliver it, I don't think it's the right solution anyway, and no, I don't want to do it, I'm just going to learn what I can get from this free event, and I'm not buying. You get the JOMO, because you're like, I am missing out on that. That is not my thing. I am done. You are resolved. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying you should say no to everything, but don't. And of course, the thing to remember is there's always another train coming in the station. So in my years in the entrepreneurial business, I have yet to come across something that was being offered en masse that was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Now, I've had plenty of times I'd meet with someone, they'd offer something, and that was a private thing. It was just for me, it was between them. They said, hey, I got this thing happening, do you want in? That happens sometimes. But if you're at an event with 293 people, I will guarantee you that is not a once in a lifetime opportunity. And it is a fairly good chance that 4 months from now, you could be in that same room with another 293 people seeing the exact same offer. The price might go up. It might not. But it's probably, there's at least a 60% chance that you will get this exact same offer at some point in the future. So yes, so that is something I created to share with people, which is not exactly related to networking, but partly it comes down to, so you'll see it says good guys over my head. I have this thing I want to do at some point. I haven't gotten to it, is I want to create a good guys list and a bad guys list. I have a bad guys list. There is a list I have of names of people I would warn you not to work with. That is private. The good guys list will be public. Bad guys list is not public because I don't want to get sued. But I know a lot of people. I meet a lot of people, and many of them are good people. Some of them are good people who aren't great at delivering what they do, but they do their best. And some of them are just not good people. And I've heard stories that have blown my mind about coaches ripping people, literally stealing thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, taking money for a program they didn't deliver, taking money for a program they then kicked someone out of without a refund, things like that. And this is where networking is very important. So even if you're not networking to make sales, if you're not networking to get a job, you're not networking for any of the things you usually network for, networking is very important for having resources to buy things from. So it's very important to be able to check with someone and say, hey, have you heard of this guy? Now, one of the nice things about being active in the greater coaching world is when I look at someone's website and I look for testimonials, if I don't recognize the name, it means nothing to me. Could be a paid actor. I don't know. But if I look at someone's website and the testimonial is like, oh, I know him, I know her, I know her. It's a fairly small universe. People aren't going to let their name and quote be on someone's website who they're not standing behind. So they're at least endorsing. Now, there are still people who endorse each other because they promote each other. And so that's not necessarily an ironclad endorsement, but it probably means they're at least of the ethical standards of they won't steal your money and run away. They'll make some decent effort to deliver. And it's amazing how many people in business don't even do basic standards. I was mentioning in the networking room that I've gotten back into doing operations for live events. And I have a client who hired me because she'd hired a couple other people, VAs and other support people, who either flaked out or one of them insists on being paid up front and then didn't do any work and then didn't pay the money back. Like, it's one thing to take money for something you're not sure if you can do and then you do it and it's not very good, but to like take money and then not do the work just boggles my mind. But that's how it is. And what often happens is nowadays you have all these platforms, Fiverr and Upwork and whatever, who say, oh yeah, just come here and you'll get someone. Now, if you go through the platforms, they have great refund policies. But the existence of things like Fiverr and Upwork make us feel like, oh, we'll just go to the internet and get something, which is weird that we trust the internet. Because, 20 years it was all like, oh, don't trust the internet. Can't trust anything on the internet. And then after all the Nigerian prince scams and everything, you think you'd figure out you can't trust the internet. And still we trust the internet. So the value of having a network is you can ask them for help with stuff. And I think when we think of a network, we think of, when we go around the room and say, what do you need? Someone's like, well, I need more clients. Okay. I run a networking group I call the Entrepreneur Village. And in that, we do not have an ask for business section. So you at no point in the process do you say your client is. You can't ask for referrals because it's a loose networking group. People don't know each other well enough to be referring clients. But there is an opportunity to ask for resources. So somebody can say, I need a great web designer. And then I'd say, well, do you know James Hipkin? He's really great. Oh, hi, James. Just how you came in. Or, they might say, oh, I need, can anyone recommend a good CRM system? Or I want to do an affiliate program, but I don't know what systems track affiliates or whatever. That's one of the most powerful things a network can do for you, is you can reach out to your network and say, hey, guys. And it doesn't have to be anything formal like a networking group. If you are on Facebook or LinkedIn, you have a network. And you can go on Facebook or LinkedIn and say, can anyone recommend a good whatever? Now, if you ask that on Facebook, you are going to want to consider how strong your relationship is with the person making a recommendation, because you have a lot of very loose acquaintances who will refer people, often that they have a financial relationship with. And so they are basically an advertisement, just showed up in your comments. But for the people you actually know and trust, when they answer, then you can trust that. And you can also message them and say, hey, I see you recommended James. Can you tell me a little more about him and how you know him? And you can vet that. But this is way better than simply going, clicking on an ad on Facebook and being like, oh yeah, web designers, or answering a phone call, from a cold call from someone being like, hi, I'm a web designer in Springfield and I'd like to fix your website that I've never seen. The other great thing about having a third-party introduction is if anything does go afoul, if you pay them and they don't get back to you, or you're having an issue, you can go to the person who introduced you and say, hey, I'm having an issue and I was hoping you could help me, not get adversarial, not to be like, hey, you introduced me to an asshole, but hey, I'm having an issue. The person introduced me, we're having a little communications breakdown. Think you know him better than I do. Could you help mediate? And even if the vendor barely knows the person who made the introduction, to have someone come to you and say, hey, I introduced Nikki to you and I trusted you to take care of Nikki, and Nikki has some concerns and we're going to need to make sure these concerns are taken care of, or we're going to have a problem. And if that happens and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, let me work on that. Because it's no longer just one customer off in customer land. It's someone who sent a referral and could send a second referral. But also someone who sent a referral, and if you burn that, if you're a burned customer, you're like, I don't like them, whatever. If I ever refer you to someone and they mistreat you, you'll probably come and say, well, I did the best I could. Yeah, whatever, it happens. I'm like, no, I am sworn a blood oath. And someone burns me, they burn me. It happens. Someone burns someone I refer. I have no problem when somebody's in the comments being like, oh, you should go see Joe Schmo. And I'll comment and be like, no, Joe Schmo is a scumbag. And let me tell you why. I wouldn't necessarily do that because it happened to me, because that just sounds like sour grapes. But to me, say, I trusted him with an introduction I made, and then he did this, and here's the story. I'm willing to do that, because he didn't just take my money, he took my reputation. And there's nothing more valuable to me as a networker and a connector than reputation. So that is the power of getting those referrals. Another thing I talk about in my book, did I mention I have a book? It's called The Guy Who Knows a Guy, available on Amazon. Also, you can go to guyknowsaguy.com. It's there. You can get the PDF for free as well. So see, I'm not even trying to sell you anything. You can go get it for free. But another thing I talk about in my book is the power of an introduction, that there's a heuristic. Heuristic is a fancy word for a mental shortcut. There is a heuristic in human connections that if someone's being introduced by someone, you must trust them. And you must be trusting the introducer. So if I've never, let's say Doreen and I meet at a networking event and we're talking, she says, oh, I really want to meet Yvonne DeVita. I've been trying to meet Yvonne DeVita for a long time. And, I don't want to, can you introduce me? And I say, sure, I'll be happy to introduce you. And you say, great, how do you know Yvonne? I say, I don't, but I'm going to introduce you. And I walk across the event and I say, Yvonne? And Yvonne says, yes. And I say, you should meet Doreen. Let me call her over. And you say, why? And I give some reason, because she's awesome. And then I will have made the introduction and I walk away. The only credibility I have is that I made the introduction. But in Yvonne's mind, she's thinking, well, I must know him somehow. He just introduced me to someone. You can't introduce a stranger to a stranger. That doesn't make any sense. So if you introduce a stranger to a stranger, the person you made the introduction to, their brain will put you in the category of people I know, because you don't get introductions from strangers. And then when you go to talk to them later, you now have something to talk about. Oh, how'd it go with Doreen? Great. How do you know her? Oh, I just met her. Anyway. And that is a powerful hack for shy people. And because even if you're shy to talk to them for yourself. But when you're doing it for someone else, that's not talking to a stranger. That's doing something for someone else. That's almost people pleasing. So you can let your brain run in that groove and be like, well, I do like helping people. And in the process, you're helping yourself, but you trick yourself into thinking you're helping someone else, which you are. And so that's another powerful hack there. So Janine, what else can I teach folks?
I think at this point, let's open it up to questions, pretty please, because I know people have questions. Some of the hacks that Michael talks about, it's all about your comfort level, how you want to move through life, how you want to do things for yourself. And what I like about what Michael is describing is he's taken all of the areas in his psyche that people have told him were shortcomings, and he's made them into superpowers, as Carol Vincini likes to talk about when she describes her deck and her ADHD work. And Michael is like, yeah, neurodiversity is a great thing, especially when you have these hacks that you're working through. It makes life a little better. So I just, as we talk about making life better for people, I would love to have questions for Michael. So please raise your hand.
And a quick thing while people are mustering the courage to raise their hand. Nikki was talking earlier about changing the question. So, to like, how can I? And if you change the question on all of your weaknesses to how is this a strength, then, every weakness you have is a strength somehow. So if you look at all of your weaknesses, say, how is this a strength? You will discover all these surprising powers you have that you didn't realize before.
And that's the beauty of your brain. Thank you very much. Yes. So anyone have any questions or challenges with networking? Go ahead. Yvonne, we'll go with you first.
All right. So what if, here's my biggest problem whenever I'm in a networking event, or so I don't really go out very much anymore because I live in my little room and I'm happy in my little room. However, I'm so afraid they're going to ask me a question I don't have the answer to, and I don't know the right answer to. And then I get myself all upset because what if they ask me this terrible question? What do I do?
Do you have an example of what question they could ask you you wouldn't have the answer to?
No, because I have all the answers, but I imagine that they're going to ask me a question I don't know. So I help people write books, all right? So they'll ask me a question like, so how many books were published last year? Well, I don't know how the hell many books were published last year, millions of them, okay? But I feel like I should know the answer. And then what am I going to do when I don't know the answer?
Yeah. Why do you feel like you should know the answer?
Because that's my world. That's the world I live in.
This is her book. It's the How to Write a Book book. That's Yvonne's book. Okay. How to Write a Book book. I love the title. It's like, it's in your face. It tells you everything. It's concise. It's fabulous. And so she's been doing this for so long. And she was one of those that was back in the 90s was the blogger that made money, so she's been in the field for a long time. So go ahead.
Michael. So putting on my coaching / psychic hat, I feel like your challenge is imposter syndrome, and you're afraid someone's going to find you out that you don't really know as much as you think you do. But the thing is, there's two kinds of people who'd ask a question like, how many books were published last year? One is someone sincerely curious, and one is someone who's a jerk who's testing you. If they're the second group, who cares? Screw them. If they're the first group, you can say, I don't know exactly. I think it was over 1 million or so. But if you'd like, I can look that up and get back to you if you're really curious. And now, of course, most people are going to be like, no, I was just curious. Or they might be like,
but then, Michael, at that point, I'm literally, and this is why I don't do a lot of speaking. I am literally flushed. My whole face will be red. And now my brain is telling me that I should leave. And I don't. I stay there and I muddle my way through. But then when I go home, I say, I'm never doing that again.
So the tactical solution is, so I've sold various things, including cars, and people kind of expect a car salesman to know everything about the cars they're selling. Mm-hmm. And I did not know everything about the cars they're selling because I'm, human and not plugged into the internet. So when I would routinely get a question from someone in an adversarial environment, car salesman and customer, they'd ask this question, what is the timing sequence on the valves of the 2012 Jetta? And I'd say, that's actually a really interesting question. Would you like me to go find out for you? And then they'd either say, yes, I would, or no. Or I'd say, that's a really unusual question. Why do you want to know that? Because very often, if you just say, let me go find out for you, you waste a lot of time. Because you discover they're asking the wrong question. But usually in car sales, it's because some website told them to ask that question, or their friend told them to ask that question, and they don't know what to do with the answer. And if you ask them, why are you asking that question? Then they'll give you the real question. And you're like, oh, I have the answer to that. So
that's a good idea.
So if someone says, how many books are published last year? Their real question might be, what is the chance that I, as a newbie author, could get anyone to read my book?
Yes,
they don't care how many books are published. They're asking the question that leads to the question. So tactically, you could simply ask them, that's an unusual question. Why do you ask it? And if they say, because I want to know if you know, then your answer could be, I don't. That's the answer to your question.
I'm not Publishers Weekly. Yes. So I like that a lot, because that is exactly why a few people would have asked that question. And that's why they asked it was, well, who the heck's going to buy my book? And I have the answer to that question.
Yep. So. And if
hey,
you,
Gary, what's up?
If you start listening to,
okay, I will send you an
email. You're not on mute sign. There we go. If you start, listening to the questions and not feeling judged by them, you'll notice those patterns. So when someone asks you how many books were published last year, then you can answer with, I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I found that most people who ask it, what they're really asking is, what are my chances of getting read? Is that your question? And then they're like, wow, you really are a professional. You knew what was in my head when I didn't know what I meant to ask.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's where I'd go with that. Dr. Doreen.
That was wonderful to watch what you just did with Yvonne. And as a psychologist, that's true. I especially in the beginning, I would have this screen up. And when people ask me personal questions, I got real good because it's coming from somewhere inside of them. So, I get real curious about where that is coming from you, that question about me. Anyway, so but you gave so much to her. Fabulous. Michael's been on my podcast, and I just want to say how what I learned, and this is partly the power of podcast and being on podcast and about being a host on a podcast, is that you get to learn about things like really. Yeah, I should, as a psychologist, know about neurodiversity, but he just explained it so clearly. And I feel like partly why I wanted to come in and spend more time with you today is because I have a relationship with you. If you were just somebody who was showing up at a conference, I would say, maybe not a guy who knows a guy. But it's like I fall in love with people, and it's relational. So I'm just putting in a pitch for podcasts and you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that actually brings up another point. So as Janine's mentioned, I do have a little bit of ADHD. It's hard to notice, but it's there. And part of that is that unless I try really hard to focus on information, it doesn't stick. So like names. So the things that people assume are prerequisite skills for networking. So this is the list of prerequisite skills for networking. Being able to speak, being able to write in the language you are networking in, and a desire to help people. That's pretty much it. Basic computer use, how to use a telephone, those things are also useful. Those are skills. Memorizing names, memorizing faces, details, I can assure you they're not. And so a regular occurrence for me, less so now that I network mostly online and not locally, but especially when I was networking more locally, I would regularly be at a store, parking lot, walking down the street, and someone would say, hey, Michael, how you doing? Great to see you again. So this is, that brush past conversation. I remember people in context. So if I saw them at the car dealership a second time, I'd remember them. But this is the sidewalk. I've never met them on the sidewalk. I could not tell you if you put a gun to my head who this person is or how we know each other or anything about them. So I could panic and say, oh my God, I'm about to be found out that I don't know them. What kind of fraud am I? Or I could say, I know so many people and I meet so many people that I don't know who this person is. And then realize the context of the conversation. They just need to feel that I am returning the warmth to them that they have given to me. Hey, Michael, how you doing? I'm doing great. How are you? Awesome. Yeah, how's the very detailed thing they know about me? Oh, it's going wonderfully. And how's your life? You know, there's certain questions you can ask that sound personal, but are very generic. You know, how's your life? How's things going in Groton here? You know, you could say, how's the family? That's usually safe because most people have some family. But, you know, yeah, some generic question in the same energy. And here's the other crazy thing. If you say things with enough energy, people don't even notice what you're saying anymore in many contexts. I have definitely had times when I'd be speaking and I know I flubbed something completely, like said the complete wrong word. If you were to run through the script and read the transcript, you'd be like, what the heck is he talking about? People in the audience, nobody picked up on it. Not one person. And I've done it sometimes while teaching speaking, in which I would flub something on purpose and then say, what mistake have I made in the last 20 seconds? People are like, what? You didn't make a mistake. And I'd say, I said this word instead of this word. They're like, did you? Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess you did. If you say it with enough confidence, they don't notice. I also learned this when I was running events pre-pandemic, that you can walk through any I mean, this doesn't work on military bases, so don't try it. But hotels, malls, most places that aren't secure environments, you can walk through any door in any space if you do it with confidence, looking straight ahead like you're supposed to be there. The kitchen, the employee-only hallway, the back entrance. You just walk through like you mean it, and they'll assume you've got some reason to be there, and no one will ever question you. And you know, if they're like, "Where are you going?" I'm going to the place of the thing, and you say it quick enough and assertively enough, and don't break stride, never break stride, and on you go. So much of what happens in our lives is the energy we bring into it. So when you walk, you know, in those kinds of spaces or in those kinds of conversations, so for Yvonne's situation, if you carry that energy of I am an expert and I've forgotten more about books than this person will ever know, and they're like, well, but what about this one random fact? Well, if it was important, I'd probably know it, wouldn't I? But I don't, so it can't be that important because I wrote the book on books and I don't know it. But you know what else I have? The internet. So if it was really important, I'd go online and I'd look it up. And that's really the power. And that's also the trick to how you become a super connector, great networker without having a great network. You come into every situation with this energy of how can I serve you? Who can I connect you to? Oh, I know someone who can help you with that. Because I bet if I was to mention any particular thing, you probably know one person who could help. Now, helping doesn't mean solve the problem. Help means helping. You're closer. You're one step closer. So whatever it is, you probably know one person, and that one person might be the best super connector you know. And so in any future conversation, if you're talking to someone and they have something they need, they'd be like, you know, I know this guy who's like the guy who knows a guy. I bet he can help. You want me to introduce you to him? And then they're like, wow. Now, you can have some wild cards in your hand, and it's just that wild card. Now, that brings me to introductions and how to make them. The introduction you should not make to me is, hey, Michael, Susie here needs some help with some things, and I know you know a lot of people. Could you get on a call with her and help? And I would say, I would love to. That'll be $250. That is not the answer I'll give. The answer I will give is, I would love to invite Susie to my open virtual coffee. It is Fridays at 1 p.m. because that is why the virtual coffee exists, for when I get those unclear introductions. But if what you're really saying is, Susie here needs someone to help her with her social media management, is there someone you could recommend for her? I don't need to meet Susie to make that recommendation. If it's something clear like that, I can respond to the email and say, yeah, I've got 3 names, this one description, this one description, this one description. Susie, which ones would you like introductions to? Because those are prospect introductions. people will always take introductions to prospects, even mediocre prospects. Or, hey, here's someone who might possibly want to buy something from you. Would you like to meet them? Yeah, I think I would. Whereas, hey, here's someone who wants to pick your brain, which, I always like that phrase, pick your brain, to describe the worst possible way you can talk to somebody. Hi, I'd like to take knowledge from you and take your time and your energy and your attention and give you nothing in return. Can we do that? No, we cannot. No, that is not an option. But, always think about beginning with that. Always begin with the end in mind. That's my favorite of the 7 habits, is begin with the end in mind. What is the purpose in doing it? What is the purpose in meeting? What is the purpose in reaching out? But for any of you, if you have someone who is looking for some connection in the business world, and you're like, well, I don't know someone who can help you with, but let me email you and Michael together and tell him what you're looking for and see if he can help connect it. I'm all for that. That's a great connection. But you share with me, this person needs a book editor. This person needs a social media manager. This person needs a whatever. This is valuable. It's valuable for you because now you look like the connector and the hero, and you connected them to a resource they couldn't find. It's valuable to them because they have a problem I can potentially solve. And it's valuable to me because at worst, I'm making introductions, prospect introductions, which are the best introductions, referrals to, between someone who has money and someone who wants, or someone who wants to spend money and someone who can take that money for a service. And potentially I have an arrangement with the person I'm referring them to where there is a commission or something, or every once in a while, the person is me because I do more things than people realize. And so sometimes I will, someone will say, hey, do you know anyone, this person's trying to launch, trying to do more things with their email list. They have an email list, but they're not sure what to do with it. Do you know anyone who can help them? I'm like, yeah, this guy does email stuff. And now you've introduced me to a client. So it's great because it's a win-win-win situation where everyone involved wins. And so going back to the beginning where I said, you want to solve their problem, one of 3 things: introduction, advice, or offer. And the introduction, no matter how few people someone is the best connector you know. It could be me now. It could be someone else. It could be Janine. But someone is the best connector and they're your wild card. So if they're looking for an editor, a book editor. They're looking for a chiropractor, a chiropractor. They're looking for anything else, you don't know anything else. But you do know me and Janine. So you can then refer them to one of our Friday virtual coffees. And then there you have it. You already know enough people to be a connector. And now you're building that credibility. You're putting the change in the bank so that they are now going to want to reciprocate. And that's how networking works.
Done. Thank you very much, Michael. Bravo. And it's true. Michael's the one that taught me about the Open Friday coffee. I've been using it. I don't pitch during it. I still make money because I always have somebody that says, I really need your assistance. And then I started doing these lightning sessions where for 30 minutes and $197, people could connect with me. And some people are like, I need more than that. And so they actually drove my income up during the Open Friday coffee because they would come in, they'd ask questions, I'd answer it. And thank you for all of you who have subscribed on YouTube, because the Open Friday coffee is what is driving our YouTube analytics right now. So I have Michael to thank for that. So any questions for Michael? We have exactly 5 minutes before our next speaker. Dead silence. Go ahead, Yvonne.
As usual, Yvonne is going to speak up again. Yvonne
Please do.
Doesn't like to talk in public.
And here you are.
and now you're all going to think I'm a liar, but I'm not. Anyway, so as far as introductions, I really like what you said, Michael. People refer and introduce people to me all the time. And I so appreciate when they actually give me a reason instead of just saying, hey, I met Janine over here at a networking event. She said she was writing a book and I thought maybe the 2 of you should talk. That is not enough information for me. Thank you very much. And so when I do it, I always give 3 or 4 sentences about why. Why do I think the 2 of these people should connect? And then I also include their LinkedIn page so that they can check each other out.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it as well.
And since we're, excuse me, Michael, since we are networking and we have like 4 minutes, feel free to put your LinkedIn link in the chat so that whoever you're talking to or whoever you're seeing, you guys can connect with. I apologize, Michael, go ahead.
I was gonna say James' hands up, so wanted to make sure.
Okay, yeah, that's next. Okay, go ahead, James. What do you have to say, my friend?
Michael and I know each other, so I'll try not to speak in shorthand. One of the challenges that I sometimes face when I'm doing networking stuff, it's not so much attracting the right people. That seems to happen organically. It's repelling the wrong people.
Sorry.
Any tips on how to position yourself so that you're both attracting the right people and repelling the wrong people?
So the Open Virtual Coffee has actually done a lot for that as a filter. And actually, I learned how to use my own tool when Janine used it better than me, and then I started using it that way. Because when I got comfortable with it being the go-to, and then the secondary was if they passed through the gates, if I was impressed by either the introduction or meeting them, then we could do a one-to-one. And that is a great filter because I found the people I want to meet come to the Open Virtual Coffee. And the people I don't want to meet because they are very, very important people say, well, I was really hoping for a one-to-one. And I've had some really awesome people come to the Open Virtual Coffee because they have that level of humility to be like, oh, is that how I meet you first? Cool. Yeah, I'll come there and see what happens. And what I found is the people who really, really want a one-to-one, why do you want to get me privately? So you can sell me something or so you can pitch me on something. So by having that Open Virtual Coffee, and sometimes someone will say, okay, yeah, sure, I'll sign up for the Open Virtual Coffee. And then because they're willing to do that, that shows their character. And if I was on the fence and they say, yeah, sure, no problem, I'll come on this Friday. And then I, sometimes they're like, actually, here's my calendar link. Feel free to book a private session. But that I found that can be a really good filter. And also just if you don't have a reason why you want to meet them, because that's some of it too. Like, Peter, who I introduced you to, who apparently your brother's from another mother. I was introduced to him with like a, you should meet this guy, he's great. And I'm like, Open Virtual Coffee for you. And then I met him like, holy crap, this guy's great. And he's like James, but from Southern California. Okay. Or like James from New York.
I got one more question. Go ahead, Carol, you got a minute.
Yeah, I was going to answer that the way I've been doing it because I'm on the one side of.
Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say the way to pre-screen people is I created a survey to ask people what their motivation is for joining a program, and then using that, I offer a 30-minute chat and repel the people who aren't appropriate. So it's just another solution.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Okay.
I find the Open Virtual Coffee works well as a filter because sometimes opportunities I wasn't expecting. And so a survey, I'd read the question and say, nope, not a fit. But if I have that conversation with them, and I can block out an hour a week every week because everyone I meet gets filtered at one place, so it becomes very efficient.
Thank you for the reminder. I've been thinking about that. My summer, as you and Janine both know, my summer has been a bit hectic.
Yes, and definitely. Excuse me, forgive me. I'm going to be the radio show host now. We are now at the top of the hour. And gentlemen, as much as I love you, we are cutting this off because I have another speaker in the wings and I need to bring him on. But you guys know I love you, right?